Hello and welcome to another brand new episode of Dingers and Stingers, the podcast that doesn't know what happened. So we'll just have to figure it out.
So don't ask.
With you, we're going to try to figure it out. This is our NFL show for the week, and free agency kicked off. And, it exploded like so many fireworks in the sky on Independence Day. I mean, this free agency period was absolutely nutso. We'll get into as much of it as we can. No Drew this week. I'm Dallas. That's Matt. Welcome to the show. And there's really only one place to start, right? Last time we recorded, we didn't know about anything that was going to happen. The day after we recorded last week, I believe it was Friday last week, the Raiders agreed to trade Max Crosby to the Ravens, a trade that would not become official until the start of the league year, which just passed yesterday. So there was this intervening 4-day period where, technically speaking, it is up in the air, but everyone thought Max Crosby, now a Raven, 2 first-round picks sent to the Raiders, plus a little bit more, sent back to the Raiders. The Raiders are feeling pretty good. They've got pick 1 overall and 14 overall in this year's draft. They've got the Ravens pick in the next year's draft as well. They're feeling pretty good. The Ravens are feeling good. They got a pass rusher. Their pass rush was really weak last year. They needed somebody. We all thought that all camps were happy about this. And then out of nowhere, on Monday, right? Tuesday. I don't even know. Monday, maybe.
It's been a fever dream.
Or Tuesday, I don't know. We get the news that the Ravens have backed out of the Max Crosby trade. They are sending him back to the Raiders. They are keeping their picks. The trade will not be happening. And the last piece of the puzzle here is that hours after that, it was announced that the Ravens signed Trey Hendrickson to a contract. Another pass rusher. So, breaking this all down, what the hell happened here? Like, how did this happen? How did we get here?
Yeah, a great question, and one I wish that I had better answers for. But what I will say is, I think we end up here because, one, if you, not to get all, conspiracy theorists, this whole thing has had me feeling like that meme of Charlie Day from It's Always Sunny with the board, and he's like, but the pieces, you can connect the dots, and it's like, there's been one team over the past, few decades here that seems to have this history of doing this, where they make a trade for a player, they hold on to them until the very last second, right before the trades officially go through, and then back out of them last minute and, claim that they failed a physical or that they did something. All the while, it kind of feels like this weird chess move of, trying to, get the free agent board to move in a way that's favorable. And all the reports coming out, usually I wouldn't trust it if it was just, random Twitter user saying oh yeah, this is bullshit. I heard that the Ravens GM is bullshit. But it was on-air talent from NFL Network posting tweets being there are GMs around the league who want this to be investigated. There are GMs around the league who are saying that this has kind of soured their belief that the Ravens will operate in good faith, and it is just turned into this fiasco and this mess. And you can only imagine. I mean, Max Crosby 1 second is requesting a trade and talking about how he wants to be on a team that wins, finally gets traded after all these years of turmoil with the Raiders, only to probably be looking at homes and talking to his family about what the logistics are going to look like, and then you get your pending physical back and it's failed for an injury that everyone already knew he had when the trade was made. And so it's this weird situation. I'm happy to report he at least got the news while on a podcast with Jared Verse. Who's to say there wasn't a little recruiting action happening? But that got posted that he was currently recording a podcast with our number one recruiter. So yeah, I mean, I don't know, man. Like it's tough, and the Raiders are put in kind of a pickle because they signed like the most money to defensive players ever in a single free agency period. They signed upwards of like $281 million worth of contracts this free agency period, and they had a lot of money to spend, which is I guess the silver lining for them. And
Yes.
they've announced if it comes to it, they have the space to hold on to Max Crosby and to make this all work. And at this point, a lot of the initial reports are them saying like, "Oh, we're actually just going to hold on to him now. We're going to keep him." I'm not buying that. I think that the relationship and the bridge is pretty burned. I imagine this is the Raiders trying to improve whatever value and leverage they can possibly scrape out of this, because at the end of the day, the Ravens kind of ruined his value. Like, by doing this, what team is now going to offer 2 first-round picks for this guy coming off of a failed, physical with a $30 million contract? And they just signed Trey Hendrickson for basically an identical contract to what Max Crosby has. And they have just tanked the trade value of this guy for the Raiders. And also because, all the teams that were in the edge market moved on. They all went and signed other players. I mean, Rashawn Gary was traded to the Cowboys. The Ravens were dealing with negotiating with Trey Hendrickson the whole time. The Colts, they kind of got the rug pulled from them. They believed that they had Trey Hendrickson to a bit of a under the table handshake, if you will, and then all of a sudden this happens, and Hendrickson ends up pulling out of that deal to go sign with the Ravens. Like, there is just such a butterfly effect and like collateral damage to stuff like this, where I'm like, yeah, it makes sense that GMs are a little bit up in arms right now, and that doesn't answer the question, but it's also the context that we have as casual, not reporters, but of casual observers of the going on of the sport. Like, there's not a ton of explicit information out there, but what we have is legitimate reports from legitimate reporters saying people are mad. Like, people are pretty pissed off about this. So I'm curious to see, man. It's gonna be an interesting show, and like, man, what are the Ravens doing? Like, it's too high profile of a trade to be trying to pull some trickery to try and pull something over the head of some of these people. Like, you guys traded 2 first-round picks. You can't just be messing around with that. Like, especially that's the first time they've ever done it in history. Like, this is the biggest trade in Ravens history. And for them to pull the same shenanigans they've pulled a number of times, but at this scale, is just like very emboldened.
Yeah. I mean, I just don't know. I don't know how you avoid getting conspiracy theory about this. Like, it's the most fun way to do it. And 2, it makes a little sense. Like, it makes a little sense to think that they might have done this on purpose. Like, to just be blatantly, mean or cruel, or it's like, and it, of course, like, it's the most Raiders thing to ever happen to the Raiders. Like, the Raiders fans, they're like, we got all this hope. We got a guy who doesn't really want to be out of here. We'll miss him, but we got 2 first-round picks out of it. We got this thing. We signed a bunch of good people. Let's go do this. And then they're like, no, we're not doing that, actually. And that, it was just the craziest thing. And you're right, the ripple effect that it had, right? The ripple effect on the rest of the market that it had. And it's obvious, right? When you see all these teams that were kind of in on the discussions initially that dropped out of those, and now the Raiders are kind of stuck with this guy that maybe really doesn't want to be there, and they kind of don't want there. And Clint Kubiak is a first-year head coach. He's got to deal with that kind of thing going on here. And so it'll be interesting to see how the Raiders deal with that.
Yeah.
If he does stay, I'm not sure, if he will or not, but if he does stay, it'll be interesting to see how they deal with that. I don't know. I mean, if you had to pick a team who's most likely to come in there and give them something for him, who would you pick?
I think it's officially moved to teams that don't need him, but would go for someone like this as a luxury. I think we've officially moved out of the teams who are like actively searching for their edge rusher and are more in the market now of like, hey, is this, the kind of opportunity that's rare and comes around and can be that last piece we need to make a Super Bowl? And I think the two teams that come to mind, and I don't even say this as a like biased fan, but I think my top two teams, if I had to predict right now, probably the Rams and the Eagles, maybe the Patriots. I imagine those would be kind of three teams really looking at the situation, willing to part with potentially still a first round pick, having the future cap space to be able to pay a guy like him. It's a very niche group of teams that have what is necessary now to make a move for Max Crosby. So, yeah, I think Rams, Eagles, Patriots, I could see all of them saying like, hey, we needed to get better at the pass rush. This is a area of luxury, not necessarily of need. It's an area of want. And this is an opportunity to get a guy at a potential discount for what he's actually worth. Is a team savvy enough to make a trade and pull it off? Could these teams get creative and potentially do players plus picks to kind of bring that value back down with the trade market? I mean, I'm curious to see. Like, there was rumors all offseason, at least in Rams circles, that guys like Byron Young were potentially going to be on the trade market. Should we be going after another premier edge rusher? And so, would a team like the Raiders want to redeem themselves from the Byron Young trade fiasco that happened when they drafted the wrong Byron Young? They could finally get their guy and get another pick back. I don't know, man. It's just such a crazy scenario and such a crazy situation. Like, there is no crystal ball with this one. I think the Ravens have really just thrown a bunch of shit into the water. Now everyone's kind of wading through it, trying to figure out what's going on.
Yeah, no question. That's exactly what's happening. We're all just trying to figure out what's going to happen next. But, the NFL, sometimes it can be a bit of a soap opera. And, well, we've got a great storyline to follow through the draft. So we'll keep our eye on Max Crosby and see where he goes or doesn't go. It's been hilarious to watch him. Like, I kind of feel bad for him a little bit because he's kind of had to be like, at the end of last year, he had to be like, nah, like, I want to be here. Like, we're going to run it back next year. Like, it's happening. And then as soon as the deal got announced, he was like, I never wanted to be there anymore. Like, they pissed me off when they sat me the last 2 weeks. Like, ultimately I want to retire Raider, but I was done there. No big deal. I'm out. He's on like 3 podcasts being like, I good riddance. I'm glad to be on my next team. And then it all falls through. And then the next thing he posts is like, hell yeah, Raider for life. Like, let's do this. Like, I'm so happy it worked out this way. And I'm like, man, I feel bad for you. Like, you thought you were out. You posted. You did interviews. And you finally thought you had it happen for you. And then it got just completely ripped out from under you. It was crazy. And that was probably the funniest part, was to watch his socials and his public presences over the course of that week or so that we had. It was crazy. But okay, let's move off of this. So the rest of the show, we're going to talk about free agency winners and losers. Okay, so Max Crosby accepted. We can still talk the Raiders or the Ravens if you want, because there's more to talk about with both of those teams than just Max Crosby. But Max Crosby, we talked about that. Accepting that, let's talk about winners and losers from free agency so far, right? So the big moves we assume have been made, like, as far as who's signing where, big trades. There's always potential for more, but surprises to happen. But a lot of the people that we expected to move have been moved, and we know where they are now. So let's start with a player each. So a player each. Give me a winner from the offseason, a winning player. His team who landed in the best place, do you think?
Yeah, I think a winning player. Might be cheating, but today there was an additional signing to go
Mhm.
along with who I think my pick was. I'm going to kind of call them out in tandem. Um, I'm going to say Malik Willis and Tutu Atwell. Um, they both signed with Miami. Malik Willis gets about, I think it was like a 3 years, 67 million, kind of right in between that Justin Fields but Sam and Baker contract, which feels very fitting for this point in his career. But then today the Dolphins announced, right? They obviously are parted ways with Tyreek, which leaves kind of an open hole in that offense. That they signed Tutu Atwell, who is famously underutilized by the Rams for the past like 3 years. Has crazy speed, just a bit underutilized. But I was thinking about it, and I was like, the thing he was best at was always the deep ball. He's just this undersized, unassuming guy who finds a way to get open deep. It's a little reminiscent of like a Deshaun Jackson, not as good, obviously, not as prolific, but it was like a little reminiscent of it because it just felt like, how did he get open? He was just running straight, but for some reason he's open.
Right.
And last year, in his limited starting time, Malik Willis was the best deep ball thrower in the NFL by a pretty decent margin. Granted, it was like 4 games, but that's still 4 games where he was awesome throwing the deep ball. And so part of me wonders, I mean, are we going to see Tutu step into this, not the full Tyreek, you know, position because no one really can replicate Tyreek, but like, is he going to be playing this outside deep threat ball guy that Tyreek filled for the Dolphins, um, and allow Waddle to still operate in that like used everywhere all over the field role? I think that this could be a really good, surprising offense. Like, I think a lot of people don't really understand. Like, if Malik Willis is legit, they have Devon Achane, they've got Darren Waller, they've got Jalen Waddle. I think a lot of people are not going to put enough respect on Tutu Atwell's name. And all of a sudden, you're looking at this offense and you're like, if Malik Willis is able to be that missing piece, this could be a really good offense. And so I think those guys are pretty big winners. Like, I think that they went to a place where not only did they get to get paid, but they get opportunity, and they're also in a fairly good situation.
Yeah, the Dolphins situation right now, it's very interesting. If like you're saying, if these additions can be what they can be, they might not be a team that is, struggling to compete against a lot of teams this year. Like, they could be a team that, surprises us in many ways. And so they definitely have some playmaking ability on the offense still, even though it's not the playmakers you're used to seeing. With the Dolphins over the last era, with the new coach over there, Jeff Hafley. I think, he's a defensive guy, and so when you talk about adding these offensive pieces, I think that they're doing their best to try to provide whoever's going to be who is in charge of the offense over there now. Do we know? I just don't remember.
Yes, we do know. I'll confirm.
Yeah. Whoever's
Bobby
going to be in charge
Slowick.
of the offense.
Bobby Slowick, dude.
Oh, okay. That's cool. So yeah, they're trying to give him the best start they can give him. And so, with, well, I'll be interested to see how he utilizes those guys. I think it'll be very interesting. But I'll go with my one player I think is a winner of free agency here, and my idea of him being a winner kind of starts by us maybe thinking he was a loser first, but then he actually ended up winning maybe, and that's Tua, because
Hmm.
you have a guy who obviously the Dolphins gave up on him. That is not winning, feeling like you're winning, right? Like if you're in the Tua camp,
Sure.
Tua Tagovailoa camp, you're not feeling like you're winning at that point. Dolphins gave up on you. They released you. They're eating a historic amount of dead money to not have you play for them. They do not want you here anymore. You can go. But where he landed, of all the places he could have landed, I think he has the best shot to be a starting quarterback again this year. And so, because that's what he wants is to start, I think when he landed with Atlanta, I'm thinking, okay, nope, like he doesn't have to worry about weather for his home games. He's got the dome, so that's all good.
Yeah.
Um, he's going to be on the in the driver's seat for the starting job because of Michael Penix Jr. coming off of the injury, um, still dealing with it, and then coming off of it as the season goes on. Um, and so he's going to be able to be in the driver's seat to start. He's got weapons. We all know that the Falcons offense has a plethora of weapons for him to
Mhm.
utilize there. Now, he had weapons in Miami, and he had really high highs over there and really low lows over there. Will we see that repeat in Atlanta? I'm not sure, but I think with a running back like Bijan Robinson, he's kind of him and Devon Achan. They are similar to each other, but Bijan is clearly so much better. And he's the best. He's the best at what they do, right? And you got the receivers there are solid. Kyle Pitts will be there still, and so you think about the weapons he has, pretty good, right? And so I think that while you have a guy who started the offseason as maybe one of the losers of the offseason, now he's landed in a place that actually I think makes him one of the winners of the offseason because he's going to get to do the thing that he wanted to do, which is continue to try to prove that he is a starting caliber quarterback in the NFL. And he's going to get a chance to roll right into the season, I think, and start right away and keep it rolling for himself. Now, how it all turns out, I don't know. I don't know if I'm like he's got a second act in him. I don't know that I believe that, but I think that because of what he wanted, I think maybe he's a winner of this offseason so far.
Yeah, no, I like that pick a lot. And as you're talking about it, I'm thinking, and I'm like, you know, Tua's initial strength coming to the NFL was his ability to kind of anticipate throwing windows, which is why they kind of built that speed offense around him. But it ended up becoming something that I think they relied on too heavily, and it got him into some pretty tough scenarios, which turned into a very turnover heavy guy. Dude, the Falcons, you just throw it up. You got the Twin Towers out there, right? Like you got Kyle Pitts, you got Drake London. You're just throwing it up. You're playing a little Six Flags up, and you are hoping one of those guys comes down with it. You do not have to be the most perfectly accurate quarterback. You do not have to be throwing with crazy amounts of anticipation. You can kind of play a little dirtier, a little sloppier, a little nastier, and still get the ball done. And to match that with, like you said, I believe as well, the best running back in football. Um, and so, all of that to say, I think that's a great pick. And the Falcons get him for basically the minimum. They're not paying like any of his salary at this point. So the Falcons, I think, also are huge winners in this because they just got a free shot at what was once a highly touted quarterback.
Yep, totally. Lefty town in Atlanta.
Yeah.
It's gonna all look like we're playing football in a mirror over there. But okay, so now let's go from players to teams. So do you have a team that you think is a winner so far of the offseason?
Yeah. I think if I had to pick a single winner, it's hard to say. I like what two teams have done. I really like the offseason that the Commanders have had. And I really like the offseason that the Panthers have had. I think both of them have had tremendous off seasons. They've signed impactful players. They have not overspent just chasing down players. Um, and I think I'm going to give the edge to the Commanders purely based off of how much I think this improves them over their previous roster. The Commanders were simultaneously underperforming and old, which is a really bad place to be, because it means there's not like a ton of like ways to get better without just kind of restarting the system. But you don't want to restart the system when you've got a quarterback heading into year 3. And so I think for them, they were able to retool a lot of their roster, and it wasn't with these big massive signings, but it was just with like individual pieces that continue to build upon each other until finally you've seen like a lot of signings. I mean, they were very active uh, in this free agency period, and you just look and it looks like a very different team. And at the same time, I think that they definitely come out much better, much improved. So I'll give them my stamp of approval as far as like, I think that they're up front, no snaps played, no games played. I think they're right now my pick for the winner.
Yeah, it's a good pick. I think I like their offseason too so far. There have been a few teams that have made some significant moves, and they're definitely one of them. And so, yeah, good stuff there. I think, look, for me, if I'm picking a team that maybe is a winner, I'm gonna have to go with one of two teams that I don't love to praise, but I think I'll go with. I'm gonna go with San Francisco.
Oh.
I'm gonna go with San Francisco. I also had two teams in my head, and the other one was the Rams, because, and I think I was thinking these two teams for one specific reason. They both took a machine gun to the thing that they needed to attack the most, right? The Rams went at quarterback really hard, and they put a lot of resources and a lot of investment into improving significantly at the cornerback position. And they were successful in improving at that position. We talked about the Trent McDuffie trade last week on our show, but it was like that. It's a move like that that makes you, makes you seem serious. And so, but I'll stick with the Niners for my big winner, because they were able to sign Mike Evans, which is where they needed help the most. You have Brandon Ayuk, who is likely going to be off this team here in the coming days. You have, a wide receiver room that, Ricky Pearsall, he's looked solid and he plays, but he's had health issues. Not health issues, but injury issues staying healthy and staying on the field. So you need, somebody who can contribute in his place, and also when he's on the field, someone to take attention and help Ricky Pearsall reach his ceiling. And so that was the goal for San Francisco. They also, they might not end up losing Juwan Jennings because they could end up signing him still. He's still out there. They could sign him back for a bargain, but the idea is that they might not have him next year. So a wide receiver core that was going to be completely redone, and they needed somebody to come in and provide some stability. Mike Evans can give you that. They signed him to a 3-year deal, which is, I didn't maybe expect that. I expected maybe Mike Evans to sign a 1-year deal somewhere, but it just shows you how much the Niners feel like he can help, because they wanted to give him a deal that he couldn't pass up. Like they wanted to just be like, we're going to give you this. I don't think anyone else is, so come on over and let's do this thing. So, Mike Evans is going to help out the 49ers so much. Like, I still think he's got another solid year or two left to be a meaningful contributor to a contending NFL football team. And so Brock Purdy now has that a top target. Another one, you've got George Kittle on the team, you've got Christian McCaffrey on the team, you've got now Mike Evans on the team as well. And this is a team that can really bang if they can all stay healthy, which is the whole thing, right? With the Niners. But that's the whole thing with them. But I'll say my winner is the 49ers, and then I'll also give a shout out to the Rams because they are my other winner as well. Two teams in my division who realized that they had two spots where they can improve a lot, and they signed really high profile players to fill their needs. All right, so let's move on now to losers, maybe. So losers for you, let's go back to players. So if you have a player in mind who you would consider to be someone who maybe has has lost in free agency, maybe it's someone who was released that kind of hit hard when they were released, or it's somebody who went to a team where they don't really have a chance to contribute very much, or a decent player who is going to end up on a bad team. Whatever you define loser as, let's hear it, and let's hear who your loser from player perspective is for free agency.
Yeah, I as soon as I finished thinking about my winner, I knew this question was coming, and I've been racking my brain. Who is like an individual player, right? Unfortunately, I think I'm gonna have to go with not a player, but a position.
Sure.
There's been so much momentum over the past 2 years leading towards the resurgence of the importance of the running back position. And I think a mixture of the free agency class that was available and the lack of top end talent in this year's draft for the running back position has led this to be like a dead offseason. I mean, the deals that these running backs are making, there's also the places that they've signed. I don't know that there's like a single workhorse running back left in the league, right? Like, unless, a coach actively chooses to make so. Like, Jahmyr Gibbs loses David Montgomery. Everyone's like, oh man, are we finally going to see Jahmyr Gibbs unleashed? Isaiah Pacheco. Not saying Isaiah Pacheco's even remotely close to Jahmyr Gibbs, but right. He's going to take a lot of that short yardage stuff. Like, that's his whole thing. And I mean, I guess at this point they haven't signed or traded for anybody, but Bijan, I guess, is the last remaining bell cow workhorse back. Seeing that Tyler Algier left, but the Commanders, they've had some promising young guys. They had Bill from last year, and what happens? They go out and sign Jalen's buddy from college, Rachaad White. And David Montgomery goes to a backfield that's going to be just a cluster between him and Woody Marks. And every running back move that's been made, it's like, okay, so we're just committing harder to a committee everywhere we turn. And so I'm like, I don't know. I would pick a running back. One of these backs. Like, no running back so far has really been able to find a place where they can actually shine as the guy, I think is the thing. And it looks like Brian Robinson's going to be back with 49ers. Not that he took a ton from CMC last year, but that also felt like CMC was the one healthy soul left on that team. So I doubt it's going to be a repeat usage of last year. Alvin Kamara gets Travis Etienne. Travis Etienne now has to compete with Alvin Kamara. Bashal Tootin was that guy until they signed somebody. I forget who they signed, but they brought in someone. It might have been like Chris Rodriguez. Like, just no open spots seemed to stay open. So, I don't know, man. Like, not that we need workhorse backs. That's a very fantasy football take of me to have. But there is just something to I really believed the running back resurgence was happening. In recent years, it seems like that has turned into the way to beat modern NFL defense is to actually run power football. And yeah, I don't know. I would have loved to see some more premier running backs be able to hold on to premier opportunities, if you will.
Yeah, it's a cycle that, you know, started a few years ago, you know, and it's a cycle that feeds itself, right? So like running backs get devalued because they start putting up seasons where they have less and less output, and it's because of the fact that they're being put in situations where they're, you know, in multi-man backfields, right? And then they put up lower numbers and they get less money, and then it all cycles over on itself, right? And so we're in that cycle right now with running backs, and it's really tough to be a free agent running back. I mean, unless you're the Super Bowl MVP, in which case you get a
Sure.
chance to sign with the Chiefs and um, you know, go continue things over there. So shout out to you know, Ken Walker the third. We'll miss you, buddy, over in Seattle. But um, you know, it's just one of those things where
Future
uh,
backfield mate of Jeremiah Love himself.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. So you can think about that opportunity, and you're like, well, there's Ken. He's sitting there with nobody. Well, not for long, you know. Like, I don't think
Mm-hmm.
that's going to last a while because he's going to have somebody coming up, right? And so, you know, you think about that. And, you know, he's that guy right now, but it won't last through the draft, I don't think, because yeah, they're going after that guy. So, um, yeah, it's just one of those things that's really weird, and it's gonna take somebody like you know, it's going to take more people like Saquon or like Bijan to have consistently the kind of seasons that those guys have to change any kind of narrative about what the usefulness of a running back is and what the value of a running back is. And, you know, it's just the guys that are that talented, there aren't a lot of them. So
I
it's
think. I
tough.
mean, we even see, Derrick Henry, like the premier
Yeah.
classic running
Yeah.
back of the league, was getting tons of playing time and snaps taken from Justice Hill, who, like, no shade to Justice Hill, isn't even remotely close to the same level of talent. And it's just this thing where it's like there's been such a teams love to play it safe with the like health of their running backs. That's what every team will claim is that it's to preserve them, it's to keep them. They have such a short shelf life, but I'm like, we also had dudes like LT, like Emmett Smith, like Frank Gore, who these were dudes who were playing. Adrian Peterson played for a trillion years. Like, these dudes took 300 carries plus a year and were receiving 20, 30, 40, 50 balls a year, 1,000 yards every year, and they played for decades. They played forever. Emmett Smith is not the best running back ever, but there's a reason he has the most yards ever. And so it's just this, like, I don't know. It bums me out that we like bubble wrap our running backs, because I think that we have some like supremely talented backs in the league who, if they were to get the ball 20 times a game, we would actually talk about a lot more of like, oh, these are like legitimate superstars, not just like really solid running backs.
Yeah, totally. I think that's absolutely true. So, I mean, with the way the game has shifted to, you know, under center runs, you know, it's kind of one of those things where it's like the outside zone game is kind of trying to survive, but you know, it's not really having much success with all the speed that is on defenses now. So now you got to go up the middle again, and you know, it's one of those things where you look for guys who are able to withstand the hits rather than guys who can break out and be explosive. And so, you know, that's what we're looking for here. And that's, you can get that at a pretty low cost if you want. And so there we go. That's where we are. But moving on to my loser from a player perspective. Um, this one's maybe just as of a few hours ago, but I'm going to say J.J. McCarthy. I'm going to call him a loser of free agency because, as we know, the Vikings were the ones who picked up Kyler Murray after he was released by the Cardinals. So Cardinals said, we'll go with Jacoby Brissett for now, and goodbye to Kyler Murray. And he's another one who can, go out there and sign for a low price and, help a team out. He decided to do that, sign for a low price with the Vikings. And so he's going to come into camp and, I don't even know if the word is compete with JJ McCarthy. He'll go into camp being the presumptive starter, I would think. And, I assume that barring any sort of weird thing that happens, he will start for the Vikings come the season's starting. So, JJ McCarthy, unfortunately, your season last year was just a little too rocky, too bumpy. And Kevin O'Connell said, no more of that, thank you. I will take a flyer on Kyler Murray and see what we can do with this guy.
Yeah, yeah, that's a good pick. I mean, dude, what a flub the Vikings had, man. They had Sammy D in the house, and they nined themselves.
It's tough. It's a really tough thing to look back on for sure if you're the Vikings. The whole way it played out, you have to start Max Brosmer last year at certain points, and I think this move was all about, not all about, but it was maybe as much about not having to do that again.
Yeah,
Because at least if you have to start somebody else, you can at least start JJ McCarthy if you have to, and that's
right.
at least not Max Brosmer, right? And so it's as much about having to avoid doing that again as it is about not wanting to roll the full season along with JJ McCarthy if you can avoid it. And so, unfortunately, it just seems like he's lost the building a little bit here, and he's going to have to go make his way somewhere else if he wants to try to make it in the league. So, weird story. It'll go down as one of the weirder things that, has happened in the last few years in the NFL. Like, just a very strange sequence of events for JJ, but, it's tough. But we've seen guys come back from worse. So, let's go ahead and, keep our ears tuned here. Okay, so what about a losing team? So maybe a team that you do not view as a team that got really maybe any better or didn't get better enough for you.
Um, I think it's hard. It's so hard to name a loser this early. Just because no one's played games yet, right? There's great names who've moved, but who's to say they're going to perform? I think you could argue like the Ravens have lost in terms of just pure perception around the league.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna say I I feel bad because I'm kind of kicking a horse while he's sick and down. I'm gonna say it's the Broncos. And the reason that I have the Broncos as my loser so far is they literally haven't done anything.
Yeah.
Uh,
Weird.
and for a team that felt like it was so close, for a team that felt like it was a crazy mishap injury away from the Super Bowl, you let your inside linebacker walk in free agency. You don't really pursue anything else, and they made it that far on the back of that defense. But there was some positions of need. I mean, I think they re-sign J.K. Dobbins. I think that's like their one move they've made is they gave him, one more year. A guy who's really never played more than like 7 games. And no disrespect, J.K. Dobbins I think is a really good running back. Just health is to ignore the health issue would be short-sighted. Um, yeah, I'm surprised they haven't done more. I mean, go get a tight end, go get a receiver, go fill out, another edge rusher or some interior pressure. I mean, Zach Allen can't keep doing it alone. Like, there's just places they could have improved, and instead they re-signed a running back who's often injured, and they let their middle linebacker walk. And I'm just like, is that the moves I would call a successful offseason for a team that was, once again, a crazy broken ankle away from going to that Super Bowl? Because Lord knows, after watching that game, the Broncos would have been playing in the Super Bowl had Bo Nix been healthy. Like,
Totally.
I have zero doubt in my mind. Would they have gotten curb stomped? Yep. But they would have been in it. And I'm like, I can't believe that this is how they've started. And they could totally change. They could have a plethora of signings. They could have a big trade that happens, exactly 20 minutes after we hop off this call. Seems
Exactly.
to be how it goes sometimes. But
Yeah.
yeah, unfortunately and sadly, I apologize, Drew. I think that the Broncos are my losers so far.
Yeah, it's tough in Broncos land to watch them be just, and it's just the inactivity, right? Like it's just the
Yeah,
no. We didn't hear them mentioned around a ton of people. Like it's just kind of one of those things where it's like, man, you really thought that um, they might go after at least one of the positions that they, needed some help with, and try to get somebody who's a big name, just to
right.
keep the energy up in the building. But if there's one thing that Sean Payton is, you know, good about or like known for, it's kind of like, I like the guys that are in the building here, and we like our chances to go back and do it again. On the other side of what you were saying, it's like, yes, they probably should have made the Super Bowl, and almost made the Super Bowl if not for a freak injury. You can say the same thing in a different tone and be like, well, we would have made the Super Bowl if it wasn't for a freak injury. So why go out and break the bank
Sure.
if we know that's not going to happen again? 9 times out of 10 that doesn't happen, and so let's go back and just try to do it again. So it's kind of the two sides of that coin, but yeah, I think that that's definitely a team that you can point at and say like, hey, why aren't you doing anything? Because that makes a lot of sense why they should.
Yeah.
For me, I'm gonna go with a team that loser is a little bit of a strong word, but I think that they played themselves a little bit, and that's the Indianapolis Colts. What are we doing with the money here? Like, Alec Pierce and Daniel Jones were the two players you needed to keep for sure, but you paid how much to keep both of them? Like, I don't know. Like, I don't know about any of this. Like, when Alec Pierce signed for $28.5 million annual value, that contract, I thought that the wide receiver market was just screwed, because I was like, if that's what receivers are going for, no one's going to be able to sign anybody, because what the heck is even that? And
Mhm.
I was partially invested in that market because I wanted Seattle to re-sign Rashid Shaheed, and I was like, well, screw that. We're never signing him again, because if we have to pay him anywhere close to that, there's no way. Luckily, the market and the rest of the teams were like, why did you sign him to that much money? We will not be doing that for any of the other wide receivers, but power to you. Thank you very much. And so you have an overpay at wide receiver. I do not think that that's going to work out well for them. From a value perspective, Alec Pierce will probably be a decent player, but from a value perspective, I do not think they're going to be getting the kind of value that you're going to want. And then Daniel Jones, I mean,
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know how they got talked into that contract.
it makes almost no sense to me. Like, the number of the contract. It's he had 50 million guaranteed at signing. It's the largest 2-year deal in NFL history for Daniel Jones. Like, yes, he was solid for when he was playing last year. He got injured, seriously injured, and he's going to be on the rehab from that. And he has not put up the kind of numbers that you need to put up in order to get a deal like this. And so for me, the Colts did end up keeping the two players that we all said going into the offseason that they need to keep. But for me, they did it in the wrong way, and in a way that's going to really cripple them from a cap perspective for not only this year, but in future years as well. And then Light mentioned too the fact that, yes, they thought they had Trey Hendrickson kind of locked up, and then that got pulled out from under them as well. Not their fault on that, but again, just kind of getting played. Played by yourself, played by other people. The Colts have really not had the kind of offseason that I'd like to have seen them have.
Yeah, no, I mean, I remember seeing some of the initial reactions to those contracts. It's like you're paying was a combined 80 million, something like that, for Alec Pierce, who's never had more than 50 catches, and Daniel Jones, who is famously Daniel Jones. And it's like, yeah, that's quite the commitment to what already was. And props to them. I mean, before the injury, they were 7-1 and looked like one of the best teams in the NFL. They've lost a lot of that offensive line. They have lost a decent amount of that defense. They traded away Michael Pittman. Uh, it, can they repeat that success with Daniel Jones and Alec Pierce? Maybe, you know. But Colts, you're gonna have to prove us wrong because I'm in your boat. I think I really don't believe that this was the right move, despite it being the obvious one.
Yeah, just what about doing the right thing in the really wrong way? And no good for me. So that's why you get a loser from me. Is you go
Yeah.
make you go about the right thing the wrong way. And so okay, so you know as much more that happened in free agency as there was, that is where we will end our discussion for today. We, as this regular season comes up and as training camp starts and things like that, we do have division previews that we'll talk more about all of the offseason additions for all of the teams. So we'll get to more of that later once the dust settles. But let's end the show today with our dingers and stingers. So, if you're not familiar, this is the segment where we will give you one dinger, one good thing, and one stinger, one bad thing from the world of sports for this week for both of us. So, let's start with the bad and end with the good. So, let's go stingers first and start us off.
Yeah, my stinger for the week is I do agree. I think that the Rams had a really great opening window to this new league year, into the off season. We have addressed not only our need for quarterback help.
Stingers first. Stingers first. If you want.
Well, now you know my dinger. So
I always knew it.
You always knew it. You called it from the beginning. I'll finish my thoughts, then I'll get my stinger, then we'll pivot. I think we had a great free agency and new league year kind of start. We addressed our cornerback room. We locked up our safety tandem, two positions that famously we do not invest in, and Rams fans have been begging for. And we finally did it. And we reunited a lot of ex-teammates. Trent McDuffie and Puka famously both were college teammates. Trent McDuffie and Quinn Lake go all the way back to being high school teammates. So a lot of really cool connections and things. And his opening presser, like that dude he is the perfect fit for the Rams as a personality. Now we just got to hope that play style translates, for the Rams. But then also we addressed our special teams. We've been kind of addressing our issues there. We signed it's weird to say it, but the premier long snapper of the offseason, multi-time Pro Bowl long snapper, previously of the Patriots and Dolphins. Signed him to a 2-year deal. We signed the number 1 rated coverage linebacker for special teams for another 2-year deal today. This random dude with the craziest hair you've ever seen. He's like a white Troy Polamalu. Play for the Colts and the Lions. One of the best rated special teams coverage guys. So I like what we're doing. I mean, we are addressing the clear and obvious needs we had. And Les Snead's motto for this offseason and previous off seasons as well. But for this offseason has really been, we are going to be aggressive in free agency to address our needs, so that when the draft comes, we just draft the best players available. And I think a lot of people don't realize that's like how it's supposed to be done. You're supposed to do that so that way you can just draft from a place of luxury, so you don't have to worry about filling needs. You're just like, give me the best players on the cheapest contracts. And that's how long-term success is built. So I love it. I love Les Snead, and I love what we're cooking up here. I'll pivot straight to my stinger because this is funny. We've already kind of briefly touched on this. there wasn't like a ton of negative news. I mean, I could have put the Ravens, but I feel like we've talked enough about them. Um, my stinger is I don't like that Mike Evans is a 49er. I think that this is a bad place for him to be. I think that not only because I don't like the 49ers, but I think that because conspiracy theorist brain instantly starts talking about that substation and the deterioration of the soft tissues of these players and all the injuries that they've had. And what does Mike Evans have? A hamstring that refuses to be an NFL player. Like his hamstring does not want to be an NFL player. His hamstring wants to be a normal dude. And Mike Evans fights through it pretty much every year. He's dealing with some hamstring strain or pull, but he fights through it because Mike Evans is a badass and a tough dude. And I'm just like, ugh. I, one, have to watch him on the 49ers, probably go for 210 yards and 3 touchdowns against the Rams because God knows we can't cover people when we need to. Could change. Hopefully change.
Good.
But, it's just one of those things. I mean, dude, back when we had Jalen Ramsey, what did I see? Jalen Ramsey getting cooked over the top by who? Mike Evans against the Bucks in playoffs. It's just one of those things. It's even our best guys, for some reason, our defense backfield never seems to come through in the biggest moments. It's always our edge rushers or our Aaron Donalds, my sweet love. But yeah, I don't like this placement at all for 1,000 different reasons. I would have rather seen Mike Evans be a Seahawk. I would have rather seen Mike Evans be a Cardinal. I would have rather seen Mike Evans be a Chief. Like, there's a lot of places I would have rather seen Mike Evans than San Francisco. So that's my stinger. I don't like it. I'm unhappy about it, but that's his choice. He's a grown man. He can do what he wants.
It's true. It's so true. Yeah, I mean, I obviously don't want Mike Evans in San Francisco either. I want them to have all the worst players in the league, but it's just one of those things where it's like, geez, I guess we have to do this now. Yeah, and we have to deal with this. So that's what we have to deal with. So that's the price you pay for being in the best division in football. But okay, so now I'll give my two. So let me go with a stinger to start. I think my stinger for the week, I'm waffling between two, but I'm going to go with the weird exchange between Cal Raleigh and Randy Arozarena at the WBC. That USA versus Mexico game that took place over the course of the last week, where Randy Arozarena and Cal Raleigh, teammates with the Mariners. But on opposing sides in this WBC, Mexico versus U.S., Arozarena is playing for Mexico. Cal Raleigh is the catcher for the United States, obviously. And so Randy Arozarena comes up to bat, and he, nods to Cal Raleigh and, wants to shake his hand and say what's up, because they're teammates on their MLB team. And Cal Raleigh kind of just like ices him out. He like says something to him and ices him out a little bit. And I'm like, okay, like look, the WBC is serious. Like, it's for real. Like, you're playing for a championship and this is competitive baseball. But like, hey, that's your teammate. Like, that's your homie. Like, that's your pal, like,
Yeah.
You should be able to, the spirit of the WBC is competition, but it's like mutual respect. It's, all the stars showing up to put on for their country, but they all understand that they're the best at what they do and they respect each other. And you see teams like DR and Venezuela, like they're, hugging before the game and saying what's up to each other. And, across the league or across the tournament, you see things like that where if, two guys who are teammates who are playing on opposite WBC teams, they see each other, they hang out before the game or they'll chat, stuff like that. So it was very, very weird to see a player like Cal Raleigh, who's so normally like regular and like not weird, do something that was a little strange to me. And I'm sure that, they've talked and there's nothing bad between them and they're going to be fine for the course of the season, but it just was weird and it didn't have to be. And it just kind of when that game happened, like, that was that was the USA Mexico game, and then the next day was that Italy game that USA lost. Like those two things happening back to back were like really bad vibes for USA, and they almost got eliminated from the tournament because of losing to Italy. And so it's like, man, what bad vibes right now. They need to heal those vibes before the rest of the tournament starts if they want to win. But yeah, really weird, and I didn't like it.
Yeah, it's definitely one of those things. It's like, why are you trying to be tough? Like, what are you proving here, Cal Raleigh? Like,
Yeah.
it does nothing. It does nothing except create this animosity.
Yeah, you don't need to do all that. We know that you're good and like you're a good player and you want to win. Like you don't need to do anything extra to prove that. So hopefully, lesson learned maybe. And maybe, in future rounds, we'll see him, performatively do it for other players if they, try to do it, try to make up for it, but we'll see. Okay. So Dinger, it's tough. Dinger for this week. Cause like, Seattle didn't really have, any banger in free agency. They didn't need to, but they didn't. And so it's like, it's hard to find. Yeah, I mean, I wanted them to do that, and they did it, which is good. But let's see, Dinger from the world of sports. You know what? Don't shoot me. I'm gonna dabble into a sport we've rarely talked about on this show, but you know what?
Oh no,
Bam Adebayo.
uh-huh.
He went ahead and he, broke the Kobe Bryant record. Or not record, but he passed that benchmark that Kobe set, the 80-point game or the 81-point game that Kobe had. And Bam had himself a big game. And, going over to basketball, I am like, there's not much more I can say about that. But anytime that someone, because I remember watching the Kobe game when he did it. And so it was kind of one of those things where it was like, I was, obviously it was a while ago, but, I remember seeing that and everyone around me was so thrilled with it and so excited. And so to see a player do it, and surpass that, anytime you see something that's a near record or, a major sort of achievement in that sport, you see that get surpassed on like a random Monday night or Tuesday night or whenever it was. Like that's just the cool thing about sports to me is like, especially sports like the NBA who play multiple times a week is like the most awesome thing can happen on like a Wednesday at 7 p.m. And it's like, oh shoot, something really amazing just happened. And so I like that about sports like the NBA where you play multiple days a week. But yeah, shout out Bam Adebayo, man. You did it. You set that benchmark and, go you, man. That was cool to follow.
Yeah, it's cool. I mean, anytime you witness history, right? Like it is cool. And I feel like there's always, since Kobe unfortunately passed, it does feel like there's been this kind of like hush gentleman's agreement of like, we're not going to break his record. Like we're going to let it stand. And Bam said, no, no, I'm doing it. And part of me is like, I think it's a good thing. I do. I think it's a good thing. I think that there's a real chance we actually see that record broken not that far in the future.
Yeah, totally. And I think it was super, I just think it was a super cool sports moment there. You don't get a lot of those this time of year. Like baseball's pretty dry in a non-WBC year. And then, there's no football on. So it's like this time of year, you see headline grabbing stuff from sports. It usually does come from NBA. And so there we go. We got one. All right. So that'll do it, though, for our show this week. Those are our dingers and stingers. And this was our NFL show. Had a lot of fun talking about free agency. Hope you enjoyed. If you would like to continue watching the show and listening to the show, subscribe to us here on YouTube. You can listen to us audio only if you'd like on Spotify. Go find us there. And you can like this video, share it around. Also, hit us in the comments about what you think about free agency. Who are your winners and losers? What are your thoughts on this Max Crosby thing? Like, how will this end up? We'd love to hear from you. And next week we're going to have, I'm sure, more to talk about from an NFL perspective. The wheel doesn't stop turning now, and we're careening toward the draft. And so at some point we'll talk draft, and maybe that'll come up soon. So we got a lot of good stuff on the horizon for our NFL shows. So stay tuned for those. And until we talk at you next time, take care, and we'll see you then. Goodbye.